if Jake Paul wasn't Jake Paul, if he wasn't this YouTube guy, he was just a boxer, and you see a boxer knock out the former UFC welterweight champion, not just the former, but one of the best ever. I don't think that power carries quite as much with those bigger guys. It's a little bit of a step. It's a step up, you know, like that. There's very few guys that keep that power as they keep going up and up and up in weight.
A lot of people think it's funny, like, oh, you're gonna fight Canelo, like you're saying you're gonna beat Canelo, like you're out of your mind, you lost to Tommy Fury in a split decision, how are you gonna beat Canelo?
1. Jake Paul is expected to fight Canelo Alvarez in May 2025, but Joe Rogan doubts the bout will happen. Rogan points out that Canelo has a packed schedule and likely won't have time to wait around for Paul. He adds that everyone knows Canelo is a huge payday, which is why so many want to fight him. Rogan remains skeptical about the fight's possibility, given Canelo's busy commitments.
Very fucking dangerous. Very dangerous.
There's always somebody coming, right behind you. And these guys who've been at the top so long, you're like, all right, let me get somebody that's on my level. Canelo, he's been in the game just as long as me, and all right, let's just do this for this paycheck and then move on.
I think when they get to a certain level and they realize they only have a few fights left, they want the big money fights. And Canelo is obviously the biggest money fight. Even though Boots Ennis is a great fighter, most people don't know who he is yet. Yeah. And with Canelo, everybody knows who Canelo is. You get the Canelo fight, that's red panties night.
Joe Rogan believes people dislike Jake Paul because he started as a YouTuber. He argues many refuse to see Paul as a legitimate boxer, but points out that Paul has already proven himself by defeating multiple UFC champions.
Jake Paul wasn't Jake Paul if he wasn't this YouTube guy. He was just a boxer. And you see a boxer knock out the former UFC welterweight champion, not just the former, but one of the best ever. Knock him out with one punch like that. Like, oh man, have you seen this Jake Paul dude coming up? He's fucking for real. Because nothing about watching him fight, to me, screams like he's in over his head. Nothing. He looks like a real boxer.
Rogan acknowledges Jake Paul's dedication, asserting that he is a great boxer despite the criticism he faces.
I think you can still throw down, like if it had to happen. Like if Jake Paul called you out.
Well, he'd probably fuck me up.
Really?
He's a really good boxer. He's a good boxer.
What if it was kickboxing? He doesn't really know how to kickbox.
When I was a younger man and I had good knees, I could be kickboxing people. But I could barely get through a workout without being in pain now. There's a reality of knees and back.
During a discussion, Joe Rogan and Post Malone both agree that Canelo Alvarez is an absolute beast in the ring. They praised his dominance, skill, and power, calling him one of the greatest boxers of this generation. They also highlighted his impressive career and willingness to face the toughest challenges.
Beast.
He's a beast.
He's a beast.
He's a beast.
Like I'm talking more about Jake. I want to see a UFC fight.
You want to see a UFC fight with Jake?
Yeah.
Well, he's not going to fight for the UFC.
Well, no,
he's
or
got a
MMA
contract
fight.
for-
MMA fight.
He'll
I'm
do
so
an
sorry.
MMA. He's got a contract with the PFL, which is another organization. They're throwing a lot of money around. They just signed Francis Ngannou, and Jake has a contract with them. So if he has an MMA fight, I think it has to be over there.
Boxing professionals are skeptical about a Jake Paul versus Canelo fight happening, mainly because Canelo is already focused on preparing for his September bout against Terence Crawford. With Canelo concentrating on facing another elite opponent, most experts believe he won't entertain the idea of fighting Jake Paul anytime soon.
Said that you'd like to go up against Canelo Alvarez. What gives you the right to call out a 59-2 boxer, one of the greatest of all time, when you've not yet proven yourself?
I'm predicting what's going to happen 3 more years from now.
So
I'm going to get to his skill level and beat him. I have one of the greatest self-belief systems in the world, and I know what I'm capable of, and with this new team, I can give Canelo a serious for his money.
Would you ever do like exhibitions like that, or like people like Jake Paul call you out, or these like other big stars? Like, is that business wise like even worth it?
When I'm done with boxing, why not? Maybe I do it. I think it's
like when you're done like competing at the highest level, you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's good because what happened there is other people who never watch boxing, or they don't know anything about boxing, they wanna watch Jake Paul because he's coming from he bring fans from other world, right? Yeah. That's good because everybody enjoy it.
Would you ever entertain that idea when you're done?
Maybe.
Max, a boxing analyst, believes Jake Paul wants to fight Canelo, but the Mexican superstar won't entertain the idea. Max argues that Canelo isn't interested in turning boxing into an entertainment spectacle. He He views Jake Paul as more of an entertainer than a legitimate competitor and doesn't see him as a worthy opponent for Canelo.
Max?
Yeah.
Will we actually see this fight?
It's not impossible. He has 0% chance to beat Canelo Alvarez. This is the worst guy he could fight is Canelo Alvarez. The worst thing he can do.
No. Tell us why. I want your eye.
Because Canelo Alvarez is not playing games.
Thank you.
Everything.
That's what I'm saying.
Everything is muscle memory since he was a kid. He was a natural. He's fought every fighter there is. He's beaten light heavyweights, and he's a natural counterpuncher. You come to him, he just beats the hell out of you. There's no way in any universe Jake Paul could ever beat Canelo Alvarez. But I love the fact that he thinks he can. I love that about both Paul brothers. This is how it could happen, okay? How a fight could. He has to beat Tyron Woodley. That's not easy. Then he has to beat a striker in their prime, because Woodley's not in his prime anymore, right? Still an MMA guy, not a full-time boxer in his prime. Then he'd be 5-0. Then he needs to beat a striker who's his size and in his prime, but from MMA, so he still hasn't fought a boxer. He's 6-0. Then he needs to fight a pro boxer. Could be an inexperienced guy, but he's got to fight him. That's 7-0. Beat a more experienced pro boxer, 8-0. Beat a pro boxer his own size, 9-0. Beat a more experienced pro boxer his own size. He'd be 10-0, and now he's ready for an 8-round fight against a real fighter, right? Then you got to beat that guy. It takes a while to build up a world-class 10-round fighter, and he'll always be at a disadvantage against guys with amateur backgrounds because they have muscle memory. We saw it in UFC 264. Stephen A., remember the Hardy fight? Mm-hmm. So he's fighting a guy with muscle memory. Hardy's an athlete.
Jake Paul has consistently emphasized setting big goals for himself, believing that arranging these fights pushes him to exceed his limits. He views challenging Canelo as a way to put pressure on himself, aiding his growth as a fighter. Despite doubts, Paul is determined to achieve his dreams.
Champion. And then for your girlfriend Yuta to win Olympic gold.
Yeah, we just have all the belts
That's insane.
in the world.
That's crazy.
And then we should just retire after that.
So look, are you happy with your performance in the fight? Are you happy with the way the night went down?
I wish he would have, put up a better fight, so then I could have risen more and done more. And he was surviving.
He was.
So
Before you went out.
it's worked up. But I think that everybody just wants him to win, wanted Mike to win. But
Dude, people really don't like us, Jake. People really want to see you get knocked out.
yeah, what did I ever do to anyone?
Well, you climbed on top of the KTLA news van.
Hilarious.
You wasted the government's money
How?
because the FBI had to raid your house.
They wasted their own money. They wasted their own money. Why would they do that? I didn't. And then nothing ever came from it. They didn't even know what they were doing.
Although Jake Paul tweeted about the potential fight, many remain skeptical it will happen. Some call it impossible, while others dismiss it as a rumor. However, Ad Oledo believes Canelo might actually accept the fight, suggesting it could be an easy money opportunity that tempts him to take the offer.
All right, let's do this. Canelo versus Crawford, confirmed. Not a rumor, not speculation, not he said, she said, or someone leaking the story, confirmed. And I guess the confirmation doesn't get much more rock solid than the Ring Magazine putting this story out first. Ring Magazine, obviously owned by Turkey. Turkey would have been the one to put this deal together, and Turkey would have had to give the green light for the Ring Magazine to even put that story out. That's as confirmation as you need it. That's it. The fight will happen in September. Touch wood, no injuries. Wow. Easily the biggest fight of 2025. I said a few days ago, Benavidez Morale was my most intriguing fight of 2025. Obviously, that's now been put down to second place because this has been announced. Nothing can be announced to top this.
One of the biggest debates about the potential fight is its broadcasting platform. If Jake Paul versus Canelo were to air on Netflix, it could break the internet, given the platform's global reach and the hype around Paul. This event might set streaming records and introduce boxing to a broader audience.
Canelo Alvarez versus Jake Paul in May. That's what ESPN ESPN in Spanish is reporting. ESPN in Spanish does 1,000,000 times better than ESPN in English when it comes to boxing. It's just factual. So I really trust their relationship in the boxing world versus the American counterpart, that it's always hit or miss. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they take sources, they don't source where they got it from. But ESPN in Spanish is saying it's very serious talks. between Canelo Alvarez and Jake Paul to fight in the USA in May, and it's going to be a joint promotion from Canelo Promotions, from MVP Promotions, and from PBC. I've heard about this fight about 5 months ago, that there was talks about it happening. I couldn't really run with it because it didn't look like that was the direction, but anything is possible. And Jake Paul did tease that he has a big announcement in January. So this may be the big announcement he was working on. But what do you guys think? Canelo and Jake Paul. Jake Paul's been in boxing 5 years. Canelo Alvarez has been in boxing since he was a kid. Been a professional since he's 15. He's fought the likes of Mayweather, Cotto, Danny Jacobs. So many off the top of my head. Pero Angulo. He fought Munguia, Berlanga, and Austin Trout, and so many legends on his resume. Shane Mosley and James Kirkland. And Canelo works very hard to be at the position that he's in. A 4-division champion and undisputed at 68. And him and Jake Paul, marketing-wise, would be a massive, massive fan. Everyone knows Canelo is a rock star. Everyone knows Jake Paul is very popular. It's hard to top Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, but if there's one fight that could top it, this may be it. So it's going to be interesting. And Jake Paul, he shared the ring with Mike Tyson. And a lot of people want to see revenge. Even Canelo said that he would fight him in revenge for Mike Tyson. So this may be on Netflix again. And if it is, that was a movie. They really invested everything.
David Benavidez has also shared his opinion on the potential fight, stating that before retiring, Canelo should face him instead of Jake Paul. Benavidez argues that both he and Canelo hold multiple titles and are among the sport's greatest. He views himself as a legitimate challenge for Canelo, unlike Jake Paul, who is seen by many as more focused on bringing entertainment to boxing than offering real competition.
It's over, he will have fought David Benavidez.
True. I think it will happen. Like I said, I just got to keep doing what I'm doing. I think now what I've showed is that, I'm a big enough name. David Morrell wasn't really that known, but we still sold out of 20,000, 20,000 people in the T-Mobile Arena. I'm sure the pay-per-views are pretty good. So I think I'm making my case, and I still have a lot of room to grow. So by the time Canelo, I don't know when Canelo's going to retire, but, by the time maybe in a couple years, this fight will probably be even bigger than it was when they first, when people were first talking about it. So I'll have more titles. Canelo probably have more titles, and it'll just make it for a bigger fight. Kind of like, Mayweather Pacquiao.
Yeah. In the last couple of years, did it ever get close enough to the point where you actually thought it was going to happen? Did it ever get to the goal line, so to speak?
I mean, I don't know about the paperwork, that side, but I felt like it was really close happening because I did everything I was supposed to do to get the fight. And like I said, the people want the fight. So these whole past 2 years, I thought it was going to happen.
Despite the criticism, there's no denying that Jake Paul has changed the boxing landscape. He's introduced the sport to a new audience, drawing in viewers who previously had no interest in boxing. His ability to market fights and attract millions of viewers has reshaped how boxing events are promoted.
Jake Paul, I mean, as of right now, for what he's doing, it's good for what he's doing. But once he fights a real fighter, it's going to be bad.
Have you been impressed?
But one thing I like about him, one thing I do like about him, he's selling it. He's selling it, and he's making good money, and he's entertaining. I like it.
Is he? And Floyd, there are many people who believe you're the most talented fighter ever. Period. So whatever you say to this question, I think is important. Are you impressed? Does he have boxing ability, or is he just an entertainer who has a lot of fans and can promote a fight and has fought lesser opponents, or is he actually talented?
As long as he continues to fight MMA guys and YouTubers, he's gonna continue to look good and shine. But once he fights a real fighter, a real fighter that can really fight, it's not gonna be that good.
Does he have the ability, with what you've seen, to continue to mold himself into somebody who can actually? He told me before his goal is to fight Canelo, so that's where his mindset's at.
It get fucked up by Canelo. Oh, I'm sorry, it's TMT.
You can curse. You can curse.
I apologize, but
no apologize.
There's no way he get demolished. But for what he's doing, as long as they keep getting YouTubers and keep putting him putting them in there with MMA guys.
Following his high-profile fight with Mike Tyson, Jake Paul has consistently called out Canelo Alvarez. Paul has made it clear that Canelo has been on his radar for a while. Despite doubts and mockery from boxing fans, he remains determined to pursue this fight.
Where does the spectacle go from here? What's the next name? Like, who does he fight that can outdo Tyson?
Because he wants Canelo.
He's calling out Canelo. He also called out.
That's who he's calling out.
He also called out Conor McGregor
in an MMA fight.
In an MMA where he is like 2.5 times bigger than
but
Conor
I don't
McGregor.
I don't think that will necessarily outdo Tyson. Might have been it. Like, this was a great spectacle,
Dude,
but
Canelo, because he would actually get beaten that one.
It is several shades beyond infuriating to see you guys set up a Jake Paul Canelo match that makes me want to fight all of.
When Jake Paul fought Mike Tyson, many laughed at the idea of the match. However, the event ended up bringing attention to women's boxing, as the women's fight on the same card garnered significant viewership. People tuned in for Jake versus Tyson, which helped make the entire event successful and more engaging for fans.
If you look at the Tyson Jake Paul debacle, everybody laughed at the main event, but they were exposed to one of the best women's fights of all time in Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, the rematch. So if there's something in it that can bring exposure to boxing in that regard, it's a slight win for the sport. But I do agree with Rick. I think that it would be great to see the mainstream public really amped up for a pure boxing fight rather than a freak show.
Despite calling him out, Jake Paul has always admired Canelo Alvarez since the start of his boxing career. Paul has expressed respect for Canelo's skills and personality, stating that he genuinely likes him, even though he still wants to fight him.
Do you have a call out in mind, or are you kind of just going to see where it takes?
No, I mean, I do. It's Canelo. This moment will prove that I'm the face of boxing, the largest attraction. Me versus Canelo at 200 pounds for the cruiserweight championship is the biggest fight, arguably even bigger than me versus Tyson, and it makes so much sense. And, you know, Canelo's on his way out. He's going to want a payday, and I want to show the world that all the shit I've been talking about beating Canelo is actually true, and I'll have the biggest upset in the sport of boxing, and we will fight to really see who is the face. After this event, I'm going to be claiming it. I beat his gate record. I'm beating the ticket sales, all of that stuff. So I'm going to be the new money man.
Sports analyst Stephen A. Smith has warned Jake Paul about fighting Canelo on the Better podcast. Smith advised Paul that he's not ready to face a champion like Canelo, believing that while Paul has improved, he's still not at the level needed to compete against someone of Canelo's caliber.